Who can deny that Conor McGregor is the biggest golden goose the UFC has ever had? However, he wasn't the only superstar who could draw the most eyeballs to the octagon. Considering that the Notorious is the king of pay-per-views, we will exclude him from this list and look into the most viewed UFC fights in history where Conor wasn't involved. Number 5. Ronda Rousey vs. Holm, UFC 193. Prior to her fight with Holm, Rowdy was at the very top of the women's MMA food chain. She was undefeated with a 12-0 record, with none of her opponents surviving to hear the final bell. It's obvious that women don't have that Mike Tyson kind of power to finish fights. However, Ronda changed that perspective in the eyes of many by finishing all her foes, some of them in a matter of seconds. On November 15, 2015, she was set to lock horns with Holm, a multiple-time world boxing champion who defended her title 18 times in 3 weight classes. Keeping the fight on the feet against such a deadly striker is the same as trying to wrestle a silverback gorilla, but try telling that to Ronda Rousey. Her coach, Edmond Tarverdyan, gave her the false sense of security that Ronda was the real Manny Pacquiao on the feet and that her striking was as good as her grappling. Even Joe Rogan was hyping Rousey so much that he said he believed she could beat some of the men in the bantamweight division, a statement he later acknowledged was wrong. Being surrounded by that narrative, the Olympic bronze medalist had all the right to be cocky and confident, even stating that she believed she could beat all the fighters in her division with one hand.
I think I could beat every girl in my division with one hand, but...
When they squared off on the weigh-ins, Rousey showed her spoiled, arrogant nature by verbally attacking her opponent and promising to show her why she is the champion. Spoiler alert, it backfired in the worst way possible. The fight was reminiscent of a bull charging at a matador. Holm kept her composure, counterattacking the champ and blasting her with shots whenever Ronda closed the distance. After a frustrating first round, Rousey decided to go on the Mars surface without a helmet and paid the price by being viciously knocked out early in the second. The arena erupted as Holm did the unthinkable. Nobody could even come close to defeating Ronda Rousey, and Holm dominated her from the opening bell to the end. This fight, which culminated with a sniper-precise headshot KO, reached 1.1 million pay-per-view buys, earning $71,489,000. Number 4. Amanda Nunes vs. Ronda Rousey, UFC 207. Asking the UFC boss Dana White 15 years ago about women's MMA was the same as asking Sean Strickland to participate in the gay pride in Rio. His motives were reasonable. He didn't like watching beautiful women punching each other in the face.
When are we going to see women in the UFC, man?
Never.
Never?
However, it was like that until he met Ronda Rousey, and she quickly became the UFC's cash cow. Her arrogance, skills, and ability to finish fights quickly turned her into a superstar and one of the greatest UFC champions of all time, regardless of gender. But then, Holm turned into Crow Cop and head-kicked Rousey to oblivion, causing her first loss in a vicious manner. Rowdy was devastated and went into a hideout for a year, preparing for her return and to prove to the world that she was back and here to reclaim the belt. Finally, on December 30th, 2016, the former champion was scheduled to be welcomed back by Amanda Nunes, who was coming off a massive victory against Miesha Tate when she snatched the UFC belt for the first time. Rousey did not participate in any pre-fight promotion for the Nunes fight. She was advised to focus solely on reclaiming her title. She avoided the journalist questions, press conferences, or publicly appearing to say anything regarding her preparation. Little did Ronda know that she was jumping right into the lioness's den, where she was the sacrificial lamb. From the moment go, Nunes initiated a shootout, and it appeared as if Ronda brought a knife to a gunfight. The Brazilian unloaded a heavy cargo of bombs, blasting Rousey with big shots without giving her any chance to regain her composure. Her coach, Edmond Tarverdyan, screamed at Ronda to do more head movement and get into a clinch. However, implementing those tactics turned out to be more difficult than grabbing the blanket from your girlfriend to your side of the bed. The whole spectacle lasted 48 seconds, where Ronda was demolished and broken, never to compete again. The Nunes fight ultimately marked the conclusion of Rousey's MMA career as she transitioned to WWE. Despite this shift, she was promptly inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2018. This one-sided beatdown reached the same 1.1 million pay-per-view buys, earning $72,500,000. Number 3. Brock Lesnar vs. Shane Carwin, UFC 116. Before Conor McGregor, there was Brock Lesnar. If you look at Lesnar's physique, he looks like the Incredible Hulk on steroids, built like a tank and massive like King Kong. He was one of the rare examples of a WWE superstar transitioning to MMA and finding immediate success. The other instances, like CM Punk, not so much. Anyway, Brock Lesnar made his UFC debut in February of 2008, and in November of the same year, he snatched the UFC belt from then-reigning champion Randy Couture. The American wrestler already enjoyed massive popularity from his WWE days, and now, after becoming a UFC champion, his name was echoing even more. 2 years after winning the belt, on July 3, 2010, Lesnar was locked in the octagon with Shane Carwin, a dangerous slugger with heavy hands and an undefeated contender whose previous opponents never saw the second round. From the opening bell, Shane Carwin showed Brock why he had issued 12 one-way tickets straight to the Dead Sea by hurting him early and raining with punishment from the top. Somehow, the champion withstood the onslaught and weathered the storm, exhausting the adversary in the process. Carwin's gas tank was empty, and the only thing he could do in the second round was to pray. Brock scored a beautifully timed takedown and went for the kill. He adjusted himself to an arm triangle choke and quickly deprived the opponent of oxygen. The level of heart and resilience Lesnar showed was nothing short of remarkable, and even today, people are baffled how he could survive all those heavy blows to the head. Nevertheless, he retained the belt in his relatively short reign as a UFC champ. This tale of an epic comeback reached 1.16 million pay-per-view buys, earning $75,437,400. Number 2. Brock Lesnar vs. Frank Mir 2, UFC 100. Lesnar's UFC debut was not a walk in the park, as he was scheduled to face Mr. Frank Mir, a submission wizard you don't want to go to the ground with. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt spoiled Brock's debut as he introduced him to the gentle art of Jiu-Jitsu by scoring a beautiful knee bar submission victory. Up until their rematch on July 11, 2009, at the UFC 100 event, this stood as Lesnar's only defeat in his professional career. The anticipation behind this rematch was high, and Brock was determined to settle the score and prove that the first fight was a fluke. The event occurred at the Mandalay Bay Events Center and featured MMA legends like George St. Pierre, Dan Henderson, and John Jones. Let's not forget that Lesnar is a legit wrestler who won the NCAA Division I National Championship in 2000. Sure enough, his game plan was apparent, showcasing the beauty of wrestling. In the second round, the WWE star secured a dominant position where he held Mir against the cage. It was then that he dropped more bombs on Mir's head than the Allied forces did in the Battle of Normandy, making Frank's face look as if he had eaten a bowl of strawberries. Even after securing the most significant victory of his life, it seemed that the beef was not settled, and Brock was still mad at Frank Mir after this. His reason was the horseshoe that Mir had up his, They say revenge is served cold, and this fight reached 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, earning $84,487,000. Number 1. Kamaru Usman vs. Jorge Masvidal, UFC 251. Everybody agrees that 2019 was Jorge Masvidal's year. He started his killing spree by brutally KOing Darren Till in London, followed by scoring the fastest KO in UFC history against Ben Askren, culminating with winning the symbolic BMF belt versus Nate Diaz. Even Quentin Tarantino couldn't write a better script than this. Gamebred was on fire. His popularity skyrocketed as he was now the BMF champion who knocks people out to the shadow realm. On the other side was Kamaru Usman, who was on a 15-fight winning streak, turning into one of the most dominant welterweights of all time. Usman was set to make his second title defense against longtime teammate and two-time Nogi Jiu-Jitsu world champion Gilbert Burns on July 12, 2020 at UFC 251. Both fighters were originally from the same camp, Sanford MMA. However, Usman chose to train under Trevor Whitman leading up to the fight. On July 3, 2020, it was announced that Burns had tested positive for COVID-19 and was pulled from the card. Just 2 days later, on July 5, 2020, it was revealed that Jorge Masvidal would step in on 6-day notice to replace Burns. Yeah, why not? The BMF champ himself, living up to his new title, saved the event. The lack of preparation played a crucial role in Masvidal's performance. He wasn't able to do much except try to defend against the relentless takedowns and pressure the Nigerian was putting on. Usman utilized the butt-sniffing technique of being firmly attached to his opponent, stomping on his foot a few times in the process. Obviously, the bout wasn't a fight of the year candidate, as both fighters were shy to come out of their shells, lacking action and excitement. In the end, Kamaru Usman was victorious, winning convincingly on the judges' scorecards. The reason why this fight lured so many eyeballs was due to the star power Jorge Masvidal brought to the table. However, it turned out that this loss was just an overture to his downfall, and the former BMF champ hasn't won a fight ever since. On the other hand, Usman kept dominating the division until the infamous head kick KO loss he suffered to his longtime rival Leon Edwards. The fight itself was boring, but it reached 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, earning $90 million. To this day, this is the highest-selling non-Conor McGregor event in UFC history. Thank you for tuning in, fight fans, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.